What is up, guys? How are we all doing? Welcome.
Everybody.
It's Tats here, alongside the Norfolk Lion once again, for us to talk about shocker Star Wars.
I don't think people guessed that, did they?
No,
It's a good job we said something.
it's what we're all here for. If you're not here to talk about Star Wars, you're probably in the wrong place. Is what I'm gonna say.
Very
Um,
quick.
So, yeah, welcome. This is our third live stream.
Oh, yes.
This is the first official mini pod that we're gonna do. The way that our new schedule is gonna work is we're gonna run mini pods every week, and then once a month we will be running the main podcast on a Sunday night, as you guys are now starting to get used to. But yeah, welcome. We're gonna have an interesting one tonight, so it's probably a little bit delayed. But basically, we're gonna talk about the Bad Batch this evening. So for those of you that don't know, the Bad Batch is basically the spin-off from the Clone Wars.
Spin-off of a spin-off?
Yeah, so obviously the Clone Wars animated series came out. They released arguably the greatest and final season. Fairly. I wouldn't say fairly recently in regards to the fact that it got cancelled and we had to wait so long for it. But actually, not that recently, really. And we were introduced to the Bad Batch, who were a regiment of kind of genetically modified clones, I'm gonna say. They were a bit of an experiment, a bit of an experiment to kind of see what would happen if they kind of tried to create clones with genetic mutations that made them better at certain things and kind of special in certain ways.
A bit more independent thought to the regs.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Disney always do this, don't they? They dropped the Bad Batch into the Clone Wars for was it one episode? It might have been two off the top of my head.
two. It's the first. I'm sure it's the first opening few
Yeah,
episodes.
I feel like it is. So 2 episodes, and they've dropped them in knowing that, yeah, we're gonna make a fucking series about these guys.
Yeah, they knew it was a we're gonna throw it out there. We're gonna fish them out. We're gonna reel them in slowly. We're gonna go, and a lot of the I don't know if people are aware, but basically with the Bad Batch, these were some of the lost. They're based off characters from some of the lost episodes, the lost scripts that were written before Disney first cancelled the Clone Wars. They then decided to bring them back for this special. And so the fans generated their own hype off all of these kind of lost scripts. And then they generated the hype off all the trailers for the new season of the Clone Wars were like, Bad Batch, Bad Batch, Bad Batch, more Ahsoka, Bad Batch, Bad Batch, Bad Batch. And then we see them for 2 episodes.
Yeah, so I'm going to start off by saying, this is almost always my opening line since Disney owned the rights to Star Wars and control everything, is that I was very skeptical about this.
Shocker.
I know, and half of me was like, well, I'm not really going to be that asked about watching it. Yes, it's Star Wars, so I'll watch it at some point, but I'm not going to be desperate to, because stupidly, well, I wouldn't say stupidly, I assumed that it was going to be about their origin story, about kind of how they got together, and that the stuff of them in the Clone Wars would kind of be almost the end, if not the end of the Bad Batch, how we see them. Little did I know that it was going to be set in that golden period that all fans are aching, thirsting for more knowledge on, which is the time between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. So it's set in that period, let's
so
get straight into it. Episode 1 starts with basically Order 66.
Yeah, so
fulfilled.
So obviously what you see is in the final series of the Clone Wars, for those that haven't seen it, we'll probably do a chat about it anyway. Because
will we?
I know it's ridiculous, and actually think we're gonna have to take our time with that one and probably go season by season,
Yeah.
or we're gonna have to work out the best way to do it for you guys. Because if not, it's gonna be like a 10-hour long podcast, and you guys ain't gonna want to listen to that. So, what? We'll start by saying that obviously Clone Wars runs us to Order 66. Runs us to Order 66, and the tiniest bit beyond
Yeah.
is kind of the end of the Clone Wars series. This basically picks up. You go into episode 1, boom, Order 66.
Yeah, straight away, which was really good of them.
Before we get into episode 1 and what happened, we probably, if I'm honest, should talk about these guys. So this is the Bad Batch themselves.
Yes.
So these are the guys that actually make up the Bad Batch themselves. So we've got Hunter, who's the guy in the middle with the bandana.
He's like the leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, what we got from this was some pretty typical archetypes of characters. It was essentially, for anybody that plays D&D or any kind of role-playing games, think of all the different types of characters you could be. This is what you get. So Hunter is your strong, charismatic, like leader. He's your Aragon in this fellowship. He's your, like, he can track people. Like, he's your man.
Bows to no one.
Exactly. He's your man. It's the Return of the King right here. To the left of him, in the picture with the grey hair and the dark armor on, is Crosshair. So we'll come back to Crosshair in a little bit more detail, but basically Crosshair is surprisingly the sniper, if you hadn't guessed from his name. So long range weapon, and kind of, all the one on the tactical flank, all of that kind of stuff. Moving left again, in the light armor on the end with the glasses, is Tech. So Tech is your traditional nerdy guy. He's your hacker. All the tech. Surprisingly, they were pretty on the nose with these.
They were like, let's just dumb this down for everybody.
Yeah. Just in case you didn't know what he was gonna do, his name's Tech.
Obviously, they put in that he wears glasses because why would you modify a clone and give him advanced like thinking skills and then make him need glasses?
Yeah, I mean definitely, mate. He's long-sighted. You can't help it. He's also the guy that's just constantly turning things on and off, right?
Yeah, he's basically.
Have you tried turning it off and on again? Boom, done. So, but going back, so Hunter in the middle, just to the right of Hunter, with the mechanical arm is Echo. So Echo is probably
that's quite important.
Yeah. So this is the important thing here. So Echo basically was in the Clone Wars, and again we'll come back to it in a later episode. Was kidnapped and experimented on by the Separatists on Skeko Minor, I want to say. And then rescued, and he gets rescued.
Union, wasn't it, that did it? The guy's like.
There we go. Perfect, spot on impression.
Just
in case you didn't know who we're talking about, now you know. And I'm pretty sure that the Bad Batch guys go. That's actually the first few episodes of
the final series.
Of the final series. So that's where these guys come in. So he joins up with them, and then the guy on the very end, in the dark armor on the far right, is Wrecker. So I'll give you one guess as to what this guy does. So again, they were pretty spot on with the names. He's the explosives guy. He's the kind of strong, heavy guy, but also the dumb guy. So he's just got no real kind of common sense, doesn't really know what's going on. They kind of liken him to a bit of a child, to be honest.
Yeah, he's just literally a battering ram. But these are all clones. So Echo is the reg, but the other 4 of them are still clones of Jango Fett. And like Matt said at the start, they've just been genetically engineered. to be advanced to go into certain situations where the Republic is struggling, where the clones are struggling. They can just drop them in, and they can solve a problem. So we saw that with the first couple of episodes in the last series of the Clone Wars. So it starts. Order 66 is about to happen, and obviously clones have got these, spoiler alert, inhibitor chips in their head, which the Caminos put in, the Kaminoans put in straight away, so that when Order 66 was released, the clones would almost have no choice but to do Order 66. They wouldn't be able to fight against it. It would just be almost part of their DNA, part of themselves, to just follow the order, the directive of Order 66. So you see the Bad Batch on a planet. They're about to take it for the Republic. They see the Jedi, and then the clones turn on a Jedi Master, but there is a Padawan. Matthew, do you want to talk about who the Padawan is?
Yeah, sure. So, here's another really important bit, and here comes the kind of
All
oh,
these bits where we're saying this is an important bit. I feel like people need their notepad for this
but
pod.
but it's like oh, we're Disney. What are we gonna do? We're not just gonna give you characters in one place, because why would we do that? So wrong guy, not this guy.
This is what I kind of love and hate about Disney with Star Wars. That you have to watch literally like every single TV show to then understand all the references.
So this guy turns up. So this is Caleb Dune, or Kanan, who is basically the I'm gonna call him a Jedi, just for ease at this point. But we'll have that conversation when we talk about Rebels, which is inevitable at some point. The Kanan is the Jedi that takes Ezra in Rebels and like trains him, and is the kind of one of the members of the rebel group within that show. So we actually get his origin. I'm gonna call it an origin. It's not technically an origin, but when he was introduced in Rebels, not a lot was known about him. Didn't really know what was going on, and then he tells you in Rebels that his real name's Caleb Dune. At the time, the only reference to Caleb Dune was a graphic novel that actually explained how he avoided Order 66. And this basically comes in and completely retcons that. It's completely different, but gives you on screen a different kind of origin for him. And so what we kind of see play out is we see the Bad Batch go and help out Caleb and his master. Then Order 66 happens, and the master stays to try and buy Caleb some time and let him escape. Hunter, I believe, is chasing him, and for some reason, due to the like mutation in the genetics, the inhibitor chips didn't actually kick in the Bad Batch at this point. And so Hunter's trying to like work out what's going on, trying to help him, but obviously he doesn't know that, so he runs, and Hunter lets him escape.
And Hunter's on his own at this point.
Yeah. So
none of the other Bad Batch are there.
He goes back to the group, and the group are like, "What happened?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I killed him." Essentially.
Yeah, he tried to jump over a river. He didn't manage to reach it to the other side. Fell in the river and died. So that's the end of that. Everyone kind of accepts that, except Crosshair, the sniper.
So at this point, Crosshair kind of goes, "Really, Hunter? Like, really?" And so that kind of tees up what is about to happen. So they go back to base, go back to where they're located on Camino, and at this point, obviously, the Empire is now a thing. So some of the officers and stuff are kicking about, and they get sent on a mission. And when they get sent on the mission, They get told that they're going to wipe out some terrorists. And when they rock up, it's a group of rebel soldiers. And so they're faced with the issue of, do they carry out the orders? These guys haven't actually done anything at this point. Do they carry out the orders? Do they execute them? Or do they let them go? And basically, there's a huge argument between Crosshair and Hunter. And I think it's at this point as well that Crosshair's inhibitor chip starts to activate. So we start to get the whole good soldiers follow orders stuff played out again, like we saw in the Clone Wars, which is that kind of phrase that's the really kind of telltale sign that the inhibitor chips kicked in. And they kind of argue it out. Crosshair kind of essentially tells the officers what happened, and the Bad Batch become prisoners instead of the heroes and the free roaming guys that we expected them to be.
And I think at this point as well, it's interesting to note that the Bad Batch series kind of explains how we go from clone troopers to stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Because I think we've always wondered, like, well, the clones were so efficient and really great marksmen, yet the stormtroopers are absolute dog shit at aiming. Like, they just can't hit a target, and they're just normal, like, recruits. They're a normal army. And the Bad Batch, the whole series, from the Empire's point of view, is they're kind of seeing, well, is it cost effective? So we get some economics in it all. That is it cost effective to have clones and be paying out all that and be reliant on the Kaminoans, or do they just, I wouldn't say get rid of the clones, but obviously stop breeding more, stop cloning more, and just go to normal recruits, which obviously we know is going to happen. But it's really interesting to see kind of how that plays out, because the Empire always have the ambition of getting rid of the clones, but the clone troopers don't actually know that. They think they're fighting for like the greater good. So, which I just think was a really interesting kind of side note throughout the Bad Batch.
No, definitely, and I think that one thing that I noticed through this season is they've started doing this as they did it in Rebels, they did it in some of the Clone Wars stuff.
Rebels.
They start you. I'm not gonna be able to say that without you doing that, am I?
No, this is like a bit of an inside joke. Just we've probably all seen the Family Guy Star Wars films, which are absolutely great. And there's the line in there that Chris says, like, "Yeah, rebels," and whenever me and Matt are on the phone to each other and someone says rebels, everyone has to go, "Yeah, rebels." So you'll hear it a few times.
So apologies now. We're maybe if
Apologies, but I just have to do it.
at some point we might have to get a rebels count
Yeah,
going
rebels.
on the bottom of the screen, but maybe for the next one. But it's cool to kind of see this. Disney have started to do this. They've started to kind of sprinkle in these little bits that for people that care. If you're just like a normal person that wants to come along and watch it, it's a great series. It's a really good watch. The characters stand up in their own right.
20 minutes an episode as well. Like,
Yeah,
it's not a hard watch, is it?
no, and it's like obviously it's kid friendly with the animation and stuff. They've proper like Disneyfied it. It stands up as its own thing. But it's really cool for those people that absolutely love Star Wars to kind of see these little bits just dotted in, and these kind of bigger stories play out a little bit, and you kind of get to know a little bit more.
Yeah, because there's no lightsabers. It's not really Jedi orientated apart from that first episode.
Yeah,
It is simply about the Bad Batch trying to still being good guys, but trying to find like their own identity. Like, how are they going to survive in a world of the Empire now that they are, as much as they're modified and got their own minds, they are clones,
yeah,
and they were bred for the war, and now that war is kind of over. So it just goes through their like thought process, and obviously there's another big character who comes into it, throughout the series, um, and who kind of gives the Bad Batch some, I suppose, a purpose to protect, and that is Omega.
Yes. So, for those of you that don't know what Omega looks like, here she is. To kind of lead into that a little bit more, the question mark before this came out was, what is this series going to be? Because it was very kind of, we know it's going to be set after the Clone Wars is finished, after Order 66 predominantly. What are they going to do? Like, putting it pretty bluntly, like what's going to happen? Is it just going to be here's some pointless adventures that they go on, or is there actually going to be a story?
I think that's what we all thought. That was it just going to be like, well, people we've seen for 2 episodes out of like what 60 or 70 episodes of the Clone Wars. It's going to be like, so characters we've seen in 2 episodes that we like, but we don't really care about that much. Like, what is it going to be? But yeah, they actually did a really good job on this series, and part of that is because of the having Omega in it and the storyline and having a bit of mystery behind her,
So
which is
that's
only really found out right at the end.
so the two key drivers behind this are Omega and Crosshair. So Crosshair, obviously, the inhibitor chip goes off, like we mentioned, and basically Crosshair becomes like the big bad for this series in particular. We don't know what's going to happen going forward. We'll get onto the finale in a little bit, but that was very much kind of the thing. Episode 1, he's turned, done. Even like he actually tries to, I guess, kill them, and like he shoots at them, and very much like he's turned. He's a loyal soldier, loyal to the Empire, and that's what we see. And then we see Omega. So Omega is a young girl that we meet on Kamino. The only other kind of human, other than the clones, really, because we see some of the Imperial officers and stuff, but she works on Kamino with the Kaminoans.
Yeah, she's part of the. She's like the assistant to the person,
The head
scientist
cloner,
who
yeah.
comes up with the
I want to say
cloning program.
Lama Su, but I don't know if it is Lama Su.
No, it's Oh yeah, I think it is Lamasu because it's Torn Wee is the other one, isn't it? With
Isn't
the
is Tornwee the Prime Minister?
No, Torn Wee is the one that shows Obi-Wan round in Attack of the Clones, who is
Right.
also in the Bad Batch a few times. Then it's Prime Minister Lau, is it?
Yeah, Prime Minister Lau. So what we see kind of over the next few episodes is the Bad Batch go, they disappear, they take Omega with them. They're fugitives now, running from the Empire. So
It's nice. We do see some old characters come back in the first few episodes because the first few episodes, I think, like any series, you've got. It's not massively entertaining. It's that first few episodes are a bit like okay, I've
laying
just
the
got to skip it.
groundwork. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. But
laying the
they did
groundwork.
really well in the fact that they got Rex from the Clone Wars, and he's in Rebels, who's such a beloved character. We go back and visit the clone who deserted, who we see in a few episodes of the Clone Wars.
Yeah, top.
Yeah, so we see him and his family.
I also
Um,
just want to say one thing before we go any further, and just the fact that you had mentioned Rex is now D. Bradley Baker. So D. Bradley Baker is the guy that voices the clones. So obviously I'm not going to say an easy job. I'm not a voice actor. I don't know, but a relatively easy job in the Clone Wars because he only really had to do one voice no matter who he was talking as. And other than having conversations with himself, which I assume was pretty difficult, had like a fairly easy run of it. The fact that all these guys are clones, but they've had these genetic modifications and stuff, he gives each of them a different personality and it's the same voice but different, and you'll only know what I mean by actually watching it and seeing for yourself. But can we just take a second to appreciate what this guy does because it's absolutely
Yeah,
unreal.
I was gonna say we should commend him. I was thinking that when we were talking earlier. I think that he probably has filmed it just line by line because I know listening to like Family Guy, obviously there's 4 or 5 main voice actors. They kind of have to do it line by line, and I assume I could be wrong, but I assume he does the same. But to be able to go from one character to the other, and he actually does an interview which you can see on YouTube where someone asks him about like how he came up with the voices, and he literally goes through each character of the Bad Batch and does a full conversation, like chopping and changing. It's really, really impressive. So yeah, kudos to him. Does a
But,
great job.
but sorry, it needed to be said. And
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
got
didn't
it.
want it to get missed.
I
But
think
no,
that what.
sorry, go on.
Go on.
No, go on, go on.
No, well, I was just going to say, just back to Omega, something that's really quite key, and I think we're hoping there's going to be more series of the Bad Batch to kind of explain this and explain why. So Omega is a clone, a female clone of Jango Fett, and the series kind of centers around the Empire are trying to. In the end, we kind of find out halfway through the Empire want Omega back, because she holds a lot of secrets because she is only one of two what they call first generation clones.
Yeah,
So pure genetic replicas of the initial host, which of course we've said everybody knows it's Jango Fett. Well, we know he died. Mace Windu did pretty good work with that, and of course we know that Boba Fett is the other one. So you've got Boba Fett and you've got Omega. Well, Boba Fett is a bounty hunter, and the Empire, I mean, they probably don't put too much effort into trying to capture him because they employ him later on. But they want Omega to try and find out the secrets of the cloning process, I suppose.
I
And
think
that's what we kind of need answering, isn't it? We know they wanted her, but we don't know the exact reasons. We're kind of guessing.
yeah,
But the series kind of, from about halfway in, we then discover that the Empire have hired bounty hunters. Cad Bane makes an appearance for a couple of episodes. That's really cool.
yeah.
So
We
again, they're
see
pulling characters from the Clone Wars characters, which we actually really enjoyed seeing on the screen. They've pulled them into the Bad Batch,
we get to see
just as little tidbits.
we get to see Fennec Shand back as well, who is
Yes. Yeah.
obviously the female character played by Ming-Na Wen in The Mandalorian, who's obviously coming back in Book of Boba Fett. So we get to see her back. You've already mentioned Rex, so Rex makes an appearance a couple of times. We get to see a very young Harrison Dula again
With the
from
accent, with
Rebels.
basically we'll call it a French accent because that's kind of what it is, but it's I suppose a Ryloth accent.
Yep. I'm sure Tarkin's in it as well.
Yeah, Tarkin is to begin with. He then gives command to that Pratt, the Empire.
Is that his actual name, or is that your nickname for him?
No, that's my nickname. He's yeah, just a Pratt. But no, Tarkin is in it to begin with, and then kind of gives command to this guy
Yeah. So
in the Empire.
so I guess for like a bit of a summary for the season, because we could go in, we could talk about each episode, we could talk about what we love, what we hate, each individual episode, but we're going to be here for hours, and that's not what you guys are here for at this point. If you want to see that, we can do that, but this is kind of, I guess, just high level. We kind of see them go off and do some various adventures. They start working for Sid, as you'd mentioned, who is kind of like bit of a shady character, bit of a kind of a
If Del Boy was in the Star Wars universe.
yeah, very much kind of like a. I'm gonna say gangster, but she's not really a gangster. It's kind of she's a bit of a fixer is probably the right way to describe her. So she takes on these jobs. She's got all of these clients who may or may not be above board, and basically employs the guys to go out, and they have to make some money. They have to be able to pay their way. And throughout the series, we kind of see Omega come into her own. She kind of starts to to actually become one of the team rather than just a child that they need to babysit. She gets involved in some of the missions. She starts kind of displaying some skills, shall we say. So we start to see her be pretty accurate, much like Crosshair is. We see her be able to use like a tracking ability that we see Hunter use. Um, she definitely has some technical know-how as well. So we start to kind of see each one of the actual Bad Batch. So we need to park Echo at this point, just because obviously he's not actually an initial member of the Bad Batch. Yeah, an OG. So we start to kind of see her display all of these different things.
And it's interesting that the cloning scientist, tries to stop the Empire from getting her.
Yeah.
So
So this is
Fennec Shan is hired by Lama Su to basically keep her safe, take her somewhere. We never really find out truly why, but we know Lama Su is found out to have done that.
yes. So what we see is throughout it, Fennec's trying to kind of kidnap her. I'm gonna say because we don't really know at the time. And then when Cad Bane comes and gets involved, we see a bit of a showdown between Fennec and Cad Bane. Have a bit of a fight, and we end up finding out that Cad Bane had been employed by the Empire to get her back. And actually, as much as the Kaminoans are working with the Empire, Lama Su's got her own agenda and wants to
No, I
protect it.
think you know what? I think it was Lama Su hires Fennec Shan, but I think Cad Bane is actually hired by the Prime Minister.
Oh, okay, but for the Empire, right? Like to get
Yeah,
her
yeah,
back for the Empire.
yeah. Because I think they want to prove to the Empire that
They're loyal.
well, they want to. They want to justify because they still want obviously the big contract from the Empire.
Yeah. Again,
Like,
economics.
exactly. It's
Parents,
all.
parents, show your kids this TV show, and honestly, business acumen will be through the roof.
It's the economy, stupid.
um,
I think the whole series just really flows. I think there's an overarching storyline, but also each episode can almost be watched on its own with like, and for a 20-minute long episode, it's what I found really good about the Clone Wars. There was this overarching storyline, so you wanted to follow it to the end, but you also knew that there was a story just that lasted one episode. So the little missions they did, but there'd be little tidbits. What I really liked, and I'm thinking if they do another series, I kept thinking, will we see more? Because there's an episode with the Pikes in, and when I saw them, I was like, oh my goodness. Because for people who've seen the Clone Wars, watched a little bit of Rebels, Darth Maul is the leader of like a crime syndicate gang after Revenge of the Sith. So he escapes. Ahsoka catches him, but he escapes. Um, and yeah, he basically is like a behind the scenes kind of head of the crime syndicate, the Pikes. And you see the Pikes in one episode of the Bad Batch, and I was almost like, oh my god, if Maul comes in, this is insane. But I'm hoping maybe we see a little bit more of him if there's another series. Who knows? But I just actually thought that it was a pretty good series with a decent storyline. And I watched the final couple of episodes and thought, you know what? I'm excited for another series.
yeah, definitely. So to kind of round out the series, we see them return to Kamino. Omega gets captured by Cad Bane, taken back to Kamino. We see that we have this showdown on Kamino. And it all kind of ends with them getting trapped and then Kamino getting blown up
Yeah, so
by
the
the
base is
Empire.
evacuated. The literally all of Camino is evacuated, and like you said, the Empire then shoots Camino down. Not the planet itself, but just because it's all on like
Tapoka, is it Tapoka City? Is the
yeah,
so basically the history of Kamino is that it used to be a normal planet like Earth, and then there was mad global climate change and huge floods, and
that's correct.
rather
Back
than
then.
yeah, exactly, mate, exactly, rather than um, evacuate the planet, they actually just built all the planets on like mad stilts up in the
Well,
air.
it reminds me whenever I see it. I know because they have obviously the stilts that go underwater, but it reminds me of like a Bespin but with water. So we
Yeah,
had Bespin in the original series that was like floating city in the air because it's a gas planet. Bespin is, and I almost felt like Camino was like a water planet, but had like the same kind of floating city. But yeah, it's completely evacuated and then shot down.
and what we
All the
actually
clones are taken off it.
and what we actually see is that Crosshair's inhibitor chip had kicked in, but then I can't remember if it's that he's had it removed or
Yeah, well,
um,
that wasn't really answered because he was set on fire at the end of an episode, wasn't he? He was blown up, an engine blew like part of his face, and that part was a bit burnt,
but
and that's
he
where his chip would have been. And they're not sure whether he's had the surgery or what.
but he basically says it wasn't the chip,
Mm,
it was how he felt the whole time. Was
yeah,
that he needed to have structure, be a soldier, um,
want to be
and,
part of the new order.
and so he gets saved by like there's like when all of this stuff's going on, they all work together, they go away, and at the end they offer for him to go with them, and he declines, and they get in their ship and they
Yeah,
fly away.
and you know what? They fly away, and I'm stood there thinking. He probably ain't got a mobile phone, and if he had, there's going to be no service on that planet. How the hell is he getting off
Mate,
there?
it's a
He's just
long old
going to be
wait for an Uber. It's a long old wait for an
yeah.
Uber.
He's going to be holding his phone up, like, oh, hold on, I'll get signal there. Hold on, like, just look at it, and I'm like, man, Crosshair, you've really done yourself in there, mate. But no,
The
it did end on kind of a bit of a cliffhanger, like, so there should be, another series to go on that.
and it ended on a cliffhanger for two reasons, and I'm gonna go out here and say, for your run of the mill, I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this probably, but I think I used the term previously, and I explained, don't mean it in an offensive way at all, but for your run of the mill average Joe casual fan who just watches the stuff, isn't a super nerd like us who want to know absolutely everything there is to know. It was great cliffhanger. The guys have gone off. Crosshair's still alive. He's still going to be working for the Empire. They're away to, like, join the rebellion, do whatever. That's maybe potentially what we're going to see. We'll come on to that in a second. We'll talk about what we kind of want to see in season 2 in a little bit. We see one of the biggest Easter eggs at the very end. So Lama Su gets taken to an unknown planet that has now since been confirmed to be Wayland, which there might be some of you sitting there going, why does that name sound familiar? Why does that sound familiar? So, for anybody that read, I want to say Heir to the Empire, which is the Thrawn trilogy that we've discussed in previous stuff. If you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. Go check it out. It's a planet in there that has a mountain on it. We see the mountain at the end. It's where the base is located. Mount Tantis. And Mount Tantis is basically, in Heir to the Empire, the home of a secret cloning facility that is used to create the clone of Luke Skywalker that we've mentioned previously.
You realise he lost his hand, and
Yeah.
someone takes the hand
And clones him from his hand.
Yeah.
So as much as the Empire have spent all of season 1 going, we don't want clones anymore. Clones are pointless. We want normal people. What are we going to see? That is the big question mark. And that is something which, as an average kind of, again, casual fan, potentially you miss. Potentially you don't see that, and you don't kind of make the connection. And then you go, okay, cool. Like, it's a mountain base. They've left this question mark around. Why have they taken her? But this just massively reinforces that some of the stuff in the old Legends universe definitely is going to start getting pulled in now, and
Yeah.
we're
The man responsible for that is Dave Filoni. You just know already that he's
you
probably a
know that
huge fan of Legends.
you know that he's read the book. You know that
Yeah.
he's read the Thrawn trilogy, and he's gone. I see you, Timothy Zahn. We got you. We got you. Um, but no,
And I feel like the cloning as well. Obviously, we know about Luke and his hand, but that's like, another probably 40 years in the future. It'd be interesting to see if we do go into a series two, if there's anything more mentioned with Lama Su, if we see anything more of her. But it also makes me think, because all the way through The Mandalorian, I kept thinking that there was something to do with cloning in the series one, when the Empire wanted Grogu and they were running tests on him and blood tests and things. It made me think like maybe they're trying to see how they can create obviously Force users.
force sensitive clones. Yeah,
Yeah, and so this just really kind of reinforces that. Yet that is set like what, 60 years, 70 years after the Bad Batch. So it's this maybe overarching storyline that is just kind of drip fed into different places.
and this is why we're huge fans. We're gonna watch everything they put out. We're gonna read as much as we can. We're gonna listen to as much as we can. We're still not gonna cover everything. This is like it's actually impossible unless you were around when A New Hope came out and you've watched every movie as and when it's come out and you've bought every single book as and when it's come out. The amount of Legends stuff that's now slowly starting to creep back in, it's there are hundreds of books to have read.
Yeah,
Um,
fans want
yeah, and it's great because I think a lot of fans were really outraged when Disney came in and went, oh, I see all of this stuff that you know and love, and that you've,
overnight.
yeah, it's gone, doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's just a subtle. They're not saying like, "Oh, we're recreating it and we're bringing loads back into the canonical universe." It is just simply a nod to say, you know what, they did a lot of things right in Legends, and it'd be pretty cool if we could take just the bits that we want to take that fit into the storyline, and just say, you know what, there's probably a lot of fans that have read any books or graphic novels or comics, all of that. Thought, you know what, we'll give something for them, and it might only be a little thing, but it could turn into something a lot bigger. And again, that's Dave Filoni. So my man crush on Dave Filoni continues.
Praise be.
Praise be to Dave.
Um, so I guess we're kind of getting towards the end of time. Um, the one thing that we've not really talked about that I would quite like to cover before we wrap up is predictions. I'm not. I'm gonna say predictions, but predictions slash kind of what do you want to see? And this goes out to the guys in chat if you're still around, if you've seen it, or when we upload this to YouTube for the VOD. Anybody, kind of. That's watching, drop in the comments, and we'll circle back to it. Kind of anything that you think as well, but kind of I'll open it up to you, mate. Like, what do you want to see, and what do you think we're gonna see?
I think I want to see what happens to the clone troopers, because clearly they're at an accelerated growth. So I know that the clones that fought on Geonosis before Revenge of the Sith were having to be put into like a care home. And that sounds, again, it's economics, but the Republic realized that to look after these clones. So your first generation clones, like the first batch, you could call them, um, they were put into a care home. So you think that the clones are only going to last another 2 or 3 years. I'd like to see what happens to the clones. I just think it would just finish that storyline off. We'll see that. Obviously, the stuff with Lama Su at the end, her being the chief cloner, like, why does the Empire want a cloner. If they are getting rid of the clones, like who and what do they want to do? And I think just seeing how the Bad Batch, we assume they're going to fit into the Rebel Alliance or the Rebellion somehow. But this is set a long time before Rebels and before a Rebel Alliance as we know it in the original trilogy is formed. There's little pockets of resistance all over the galaxy. But I just want to know if the Bad Batch tie into anything we've already seen. If they tie into helping Kanan, like will they meet Kanan in season 2 and will he realise that Hunter let him go? I think, yeah, where do they fit in with the characters? Because there's been a lot of characters dropped into the Bad Batch series. Are we going to see them meet other characters who we've already met in the universe who are quite big? I'd like to see something maybe like with Obi-Wan. Will he meet the Bad Batch? Like, just loads of different things that you're like, oh my god, that would be so cool. Because Obi-Wan makes an appearance in Rebels as an old man. Clearly, he wouldn't be an old man if he's seeing the Bad Batch. But the Bad Batch have got accelerated growth, so they're only going to be around for another few years. So they probably don't fit into the Rebel Alliance as it is now, as we know it. I just want to know their storyline, like how they, if they just literally keep themselves to themselves with Omega, because obviously had got a normal growth pattern, or whether, what happens.
So it'd be really interesting to see kind of. I feel like they were trying to set it up with Rex because Rex kept kind of going, "I've got a cause. You know, you guys are good soldiers.
Yeah, give me a
come
call
be
kind of thing.
soldiers like for
Yeah,
me." So I really hope we get to see that. Even if we see it in Rebels a little bit. So like Princess Leia rocks up in Princess Leia in Rebels very briefly. Um, it'd be really great to kind of see, even if it's just kind of little cameo, little like dip in and out, kind of breadcrumbs to see that happen. That's something I would love to see. I'd really like to kind of see, like you've said, the what happens with the Empire. I feel like this is a really good opportunity for them to tell the story of the early Empire, but in a way, I feel like a series about early Imperials wouldn't do well because people hate the bad guy and
yeah.
the Empire
Unless it's
are the bad
Vader
guy.
going after Jedi, but also the series I'd like to see, and this is completely off topic, but I'd love to see a series focused on Vader going to being on the battlefield basically and going to planets where there's still separatists or old republic um, people fighting and not giving up their planet, and Vader is dropped in and has to actually do battle on the battlefield. That would be insanely cool. That's the kind of bit of the Empire that I would like to see.
Yeah, and this potentially leads into other things, right? We don't know if they're going to do a spin-off of a spin-off of a spin-off. It's kind of what's happened with the Ahsoka series. Like, it's just taken her from Clone Wars, but actually the spin-off's going to be from The Mandalorian because it's going to be set around the same time as The Mandalorian and it's going to be live action. Like,
And Omega's got that kind of Ahsoka kind of feel about her that to begin with she seems just like this annoying character, bit whiny, but later on you realise there is actually more to her than that.
yeah, it's just a bit. I actually think that this is something that Dave Filoni's really good at. Is taking these characters who at the beginning you're kind of like bit whiny, bit annoying, kind of. And again, we see character development, and with Ahsoka, we saw it over what 6, 7 seasons. With Omega, we've seen it over the first season. She's grown up. She's kind of learned to fend for herself a little bit, and it's really great to see. And I hope we see more of that. It'd be really interesting to kind of see what the script is um, with kind of a relationship with her and Boba, and I don't mean a romantic relationship. I just kind of mean the whole, Boba's a bounty hunter at this point and starting to try to establish himself, and and just to kind of see the parallels maybe a little bit, because Boba becomes off the back of the Clone Wars and everything quite brattish, quite kind of, he's got something to prove, got a bit of a chip on his shoulder. So it'd be really great to kind of see both the parallels and kind of the opposites that play out between Omega and Boba. I also really, really hope, and I'm gonna put this out here now. I hated Rogue One because my whole thing was, well, they all have to die at the end because we know that that's what happens, and and I kind of couldn't get invested in something where I was like, well, I'm gonna watch this for an hour and a half, and then they're all gonna die, and it's gonna mean nothing and happy, like that. That's it. It's an hour of my life that I'm not getting back.
Died to bring us this information.
I really hope that we see something with Omega. I really hope that she becomes. She doesn't have to be she doesn't have to go and be this badass member of the rebellion. I don't care about seeing that. I don't care about her becoming this mad, incredible character that we need to, like, everyone needs to become obsessed with, and she needs to become the future of the Star Wars franchise. That's not what I'm asking. But I don't want it to just be like a, oh well, she dies at the end of season 2. That's it. We're not making any more Bad Batch. Cheers, thanks. I'm out. Like,
Really good if she had even like I really liked what they did in Rebels at the end when that finished, where they just gave a couple of lines on the screen and said like, Ezra did this, and I know they said what was her name, Sabine. Sabine did
yeah.
this. They were like, Hera fought at the Battle of Endor in Return of the Jedi. So you're kind of like, oh, as much as I didn't see it in the movie, she was there because it's realistic that the rebellion needed loads and loads of ships, hundreds. So she could have been one of them. It'd be nice if they did something so Omega wasn't. I don't mind if she's killed off if it's a
If it's,
justification.
yeah, I
For
was gonna say,
the storyline.
if it's valid and it makes sense, fine. But don't just do it because you're like, oh, we've created this
Well, she's
character.
not in the movie,
Yeah,
so
like
we've got to get rid
we've
of her.
created this character that we need to get rid of. So,
Yeah.
but I think Rebels did it really well. We don't know how many series of the Bad Batch we're gonna get. We'll put that out there now. We don't know how many we're gonna get. We're fairly confident there's a season 2. I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, but we're fairly confident that there's a season 2. With all the spin-offs and everything that are coming out of Disney at the moment, I'd be highly surprised if there wasn't a season 2. Is it gonna become a Clone Wars? I don't think so. I think we're probably looking at 2 or 3 seasons before it kind of runs its course. But yeah, it'd be great to see. Like, Rebels was the right length. They could have dragged Rebels out for 7, 8 seasons. They didn't need to. They told the story. They left it open ended. They can come back. They can bolt stuff on the end. Don't know if it would be Rebels, but they can bolt stuff on the end with Sabine, Hera, Ezra. We don't know what's happened with him. There's still big question marks around him and Thrawn. Like, it would be really great to kind of see what's going on. And I really hope that that's what they're going to do with Bad Batch. They're going to kind of, and I don't doubt it. Like, Dave Filoni hasn't steered us wrong. He seems like he comes in with a plan and an actual vision of, I want to start here. This is where I want to get to. Let's make it happen.
I feel like he's the kind of equivalent that we've got of like the guy who executive produces all the Marvel films, where it's like there's all these different movies, and now obviously there's TV series that all do actually flow into the same river at the end of the day. And that's what I feel like we've got with Star Wars. With all these series, they do flow into the main storyline of Empire, Rebellion, New Republic.
I'm gonna
I
put
think
it.
it
I'm gonna put
all
it.
flows into that. And
Gonna
there is
put.
a season 2 of The Bad Batch. I've just seen it.
I've,
It's going to be released next year.
okay, perfect. There you go. I feel like Dave Filoni has out George Lucas. George Lucas.
That's a bold statement, but just based on Jar Jar Binks alone, I agree.
So you guys go crazy in the comments on that one. But I feel like George Lucas started with a movie. He knew that he wanted to make multiple movies. Fine. I don't think he ever expected it to become what it became. And I think it outgrew him. I think he got to the point where it was so difficult, particularly at that time when technology isn't how it or wasn't how it is now, to keep a track of everything. And I think that's why Disney retconned Legends. As much as I hate that they did it, I think that's why they did it, because keeping creative control over all these thousands of different pieces of media that they needed to was just impossible.
Yeah, they can't
And
control the narrative, can they?
no, and I think this is where Dave Filoni's come in and kind of gone, I've got a handle on this. Like, and it makes sense. There's, as we've said, you see the characters kind of dotted here and there, and they're not just done as little, like, we're gonna do it for the sake of doing it. Like, it makes sense,
Each
and
have a
it
purpose in the storyline. In the whole Skywalker saga, they each have a part to play.
um. So that's me. I'm gonna wrap up with my closing thoughts, and then I'll throw it over to you to kind of to put it out there. But for me, I, I loved this. I'm genuinely very excited for season 2. Yeah, I would think they're probably going to release them weekly, which absolutely breaks my heart because I just want to binge it. But it is what it is, and I'll watch them as they come out every week. But for me, this was great. As I said, it's a series which, if you've not watched the Clone Wars, doesn't matter. You can come in. You know, you can, like, it stands up on its own. The characters are good. It's pretty traditional. They go off, they do their stuff, but it's got a place and it's been done for the right reasons. It wasn't just a money grab. It wasn't just a, oh, do you know what? The fans love this, so let's make this. It makes sense. It tells a story, and I genuinely am excited to see where it goes. That's pretty much as I can say on it.
Yeah, I think there's not really much more to say really than that. I think that you really get invested in these characters. And again, it's another series that really doesn't have lightsabers. So you're not really used to a lot of that, but it just works. It feels almost like this is a continuation just of the Clone Wars series. And we did actually all really like the Clone Wars series. It was a really good, well thought out series by Dave Filoni. And this, I just think, is a continuation of that. And we actually genuinely are invested in Hunter, in Tech, in Wrecker. We care about what's going to happen to them. And I think to have taken characters that are only in 2 episodes of the Clone Wars out of, like we say, near on probably 100 episodes, that to take characters from 2 episodes and turn it into a series and make them as beloved as what they appear to be in the Star Wars universe, I think is great, is genius. So no, really excited for season 2. There's just so much great Star Wars stuff coming out in the next like 2 years. But yeah, no, Bad Batch definitely a series 2. Just excited to see what happens.
There you go. So if you haven't seen it, guys, go watch it. It's worth it. It's on Disney Plus, full season, available now. Go binge it. I think it's not actually that long. 20-minute episodes. There's not that many episodes. Go watch it. Go see what we've been talking about. And then come back and let us know in the comments kind of what you think, whether you agree with us, whether you disagree with us. If you've already seen it, let us know down below in the comments what you think. And again, whether we're absolute idiots and we've completely missed the point of the series, or if you think that we're spot on. We're going to be back next week at some point. So whether you're watching live now on Twitch or whether you're watching on the VOD on YouTube later, we'll be back next week with another live show, and then for it to be uploaded to YouTube afterwards. So yet to be determined on the date. We're going to try and get a proper go live schedule sorted. But go follow all of the Jedi in Exile socials. It's Jedi in Exile or the Jedi in Exile on most of the socials. That's TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Twitch. That way you don't miss when new videos go up or when we go live.
Yeah.
Our personal socials have all been dotting about below us throughout this entire thing. So it's Tats on most of the social platforms, and either the Norfolk Lion or BG Pilk on most of the socials. So feel free to follow us. We'll also be posting out. And other than that, all I can say is thank you so much for your support, guys. Please keep watching the videos. Please keep coming and watching the live shows and coming and chatting to us in chat. We love to kind of see what's going on and get to know you guys and your thoughts on everything as well. And if there's anything you want to see us talk about, let us know, either on the socials or in the comments. Let us know. And other than that, I'll let you sign off.
Okay, yes, once again, I'm not going to waffle on too much. Just thank you for everyone's support. Like Matt said, go and follow us, and we'll see you next week where we will be talking about the other TV series come out, Visions.
And we'll catch you guys in the next one.
See you later,
Cheers.
guys. Take care.